Sharma is working as professor in Department of English in Central University of Himachal Pradesh. He is assistant director, Center for the Studies and Nodal Officer Skill India Initiative. His research interests are comparative literature and translation studies, literature of Tibetan and Kashmiri Pandits, folk literature, post-colonial literature, communication and interpersonal skills, academic writing skills. Professor Sharma has published about 50 research publications, including 2 books, has supervised about 6 PhD students, and Dr. Sharma has attended more than 30 conferences and symposium and chaired more than 10 sessions. He has delivered more than 20 invited talks. He holds membership of many societies and professional bodies. It's great pleasure to have you here, sir. So I invite you, sir, please come up on the stage and deliver your talk. Professor K. M. Raj Sharma.
The seminar is current advances in basic and social sciences, but I am a person from literatures, and looking at these recent advances or current advances. If I have to say about, because the title of my presentation is Translation as a New Paradigm for Echoing Cultural Traditionality. So, in order to discuss this very point, I have picked up 2-3 stories because I couldn't get much time to, you can say, develop a thorough paper on it. But of course, I have been working on translation studies, and many scholars, they are working with me for, you can say, translating different literatures, be that Himachali or be that, say, Dogri literature and all. My core area is basically translation studies, and I have just picked up this very thing. And as far as translation is concerned, translation happens to be one field where, of course, it's been practiced for centuries. It's just not that, it's current that way. But looking at the scenario, and if at all you talk about, say, India, and talking about the, say, folk literature, we see that not many people in India, they are, practicing translation. Reasons may vary, but talking about the folk literatures, many literatures, known literatures, they have been translated. But if at all we talk about the very spirit of India, we say that, it's in the villages, and of course, the very, you can say, essence or the very nuanced feelings, they could be gathered from the folks and from the folk literatures. So, if we talk about, say, the translation studies, and as you must have witnessed nowadays that one book, Tomb of Sand, Red Samadhi, it has been translated and it has been awarded with this Booker Prize. And there was another one, Vegetarianism, alright. That too was from, say, it's a South Korean novel which was translated into English, and that too was awarded Booker Prize for the first time. And of course, the awarding agencies, they have given the dues to the translators as well. So that means earlier on, no translation work was recognized and no translator was given their due. But now people have started, say, recognizing them as well. This is one take on translation studies, and another one is I'm venturing into the translations, venturing into the folk literature. And I'm talking about the translation studies in Himachal, how it's been practiced. I have picked up 2-3 stories. One story has been translated by Professor R.K. Shukla, who is a retired professor from Banaras Hindu University. Another one is my supervisor, with whom I worked for my PhD, Professor Meenakshi Paul, and third one I have translated. So these are three stories. One story is titled as the Saddle. Another story is titled, it is Darosh, which I have translated, and third one is Mitsa. The two stories, the Saddle, I'm going to talk briefly about these stories. One by one. First of all, let's pick up the saddle. The saddle is basically based on the tradition, cultural tradition, which occurred recently. I hope all of you who hail from say Himachal, you must have heard about the Bhunda Fair, Bhunda Fair rather. So it was celebrated recently in Shimla district. It is based on that. There are two takes on this. Because my subject position here happens to be that I'm going to talk about it, say, from the angle of translation. And if at all you talk about the stories they have been taken up by the writers, their subject position is entirely different. For example, the saddle has been picked up by one renowned author from Himachal, S.R. Harnoot. So this story talks about this affair, and wherein there is one character whose name is Sahaju and who is known as Beda. He has to slide over a rope, and that's how you can say, because it's a custom. It's a custom that we have to satisfy, or you can say we have to worship our deities in order to get their blessing. So the entire tradition is there, but the writer has an altogether different take, because that Beda, who has to slide, he happens to be from a lower caste. All right. So it is basically the writer's take is to take up the caste system and how he dismantles this entire structure. So this character is there, and then he takes advantage of the times, and in between while he was sliding, he stops there, and of course the way it has been taken up that after 150 years the fair is being celebrated. Of course, that's not the norm. It is happening. It's not only say in Shimla, but I think in some parts of Kullu district and Sirmaur district, they celebrate it. Sometimes it is the way we see that nowadays, Kumbh is being celebrated at Prayagraj, and similar, there are four places where we celebrate this Kumbh. Similarly, here too you can say, but the writer has taken the advantage of this, and because his subject position is different one. So he has picked up this entire thing, and of course you can say he stops in between this Sahaju as Beda, and he asks the person who was the key functionary that you just give me this, you just give me that, and then that all this happens. I hope if at all you want to, I can give one copy to the library. Because this is a book that which has been edited by me, so you can read that text. The entire text says a lot about, but as far as translation is concerned, translation studies, and I'm not saying that because the writer's take is different, and the way he has dismantled this caste system. But to the other side, just getting into the very custom of Bhunda Fair, we find that, and we have seen that many people, it's not that we in India or in Himachal, we know about it, but the world over. Nowadays, if at all you can say, you scroll down your mobile, your Facebook, you see that even so many reels were there, how this Bhunda, how this Beda was sliding over the rope and all things. So we find that the ones who doesn't know anything about this, because this was written in Pahadi dialect, in Pahadi language, in Pahadi Hindi. So the ones who has no knowledge about Hindi, at least if it is translated into English, because this stands translated into English by say Professor R.K. Shukla. So that way it has, you can say, it stands propagated, you can say, throughout the world. There is another story, that is Darosh. Darosh happens to be one custom, and this custom is again in the peripheral regions of say Shimla district and in Sirmaur. But of course, you can say the story says that it's being taken up. This custom is a part of the Sirmaur district, and it is known as Darosh Davla. What happens is there, in order to marry a girl, it is a kind of a custom, maybe not followed nowadays, but earlier on it was there. So the writer has taken a different take. It's just in how the females, how you can say the female consciousness it comes out, and how it can go against the patriarchal norms. So this is basically patriarchy at its height, and we see that the boy who has to marry a girl, he will chase the girl and rape her, and then they are married. So this is the kind of a custom. And there is one girl, sorry. There is one girl whose name is Kanam, and she is, you can say, she has studied outside her village, and then thank you. That whatever is going on, that's not right, because same thing has happened to her mother, to her sister, who stand traumatized by this act, and so many other girls. There was one girl who has already filed a case in the court. So all this was happening, but in the name of custom, all this was happening. My point here is that again, because she goes against, she has learned the martial arts, she picks up the boys and she thrashes them. All this happens. So this is basically within the story. A writer's take is just to, you can say, find a kind of new woman or new women from Himachal. So, but the culture and tradition is there. Okay, so. If you talk about this tradition, I'm not, you can say, saying that this is positive or negative. We are not getting into that, because somewhere the literature people, the linguists, the social scientists, they are working differently for these very parameters, these very customs and traditions. So we see the translator's role is somewhere. Translator is playing a very big role in bringing out these very customs, and of course it's just not that these very customs they are a part of Himachali society only, but of course there are other Pahadi states like Uttarakhand, they have different traditions. So of course you can say if it stands translated and people come to know about it, different studies they emerge. Now I am going to talk about the third story. Third story is titled Mitsar. It has been translated as Mitsar, but this is basically Mitchar. This is a tradition. This is a tradition of polyandry, wherein say 4-5 men, okay, or 2 or 3 brothers, they marry a single, woman. So in this case, what happens is there is the second brother and the third brother or fourth brother, and so the writer's position here is that he is looking at the from the point of view of the second and the third and the fourth one, because the elder one is privileged to so many things. So that way, of course, the tradition has been taken up in these very societies. This is a story from Laul and Spiti. So there we see that these people, they have taken up this very tradition in order to, you can say, save the family system. Okay? There are positives and negatives. Again, we are not going into that because my subject position is about the translation. But of course, the tradition's subject position is that they are trying to trying to save the family system. So there shouldn't be any kind of divisions within the families, and of course there has to be, you can say, love should prevail within the families. So all these things were there. But of course the writer's take is that he is looking at it from the person who happens to be the second or the third brother or fourth or maybe so on. Of course, when we are talking about the polyandrous societies, there are many societies. I have list of many societies. Okay, there are some societies in Kerala. Of course, when we go back to say to Mahabharata times, we find that five brothers, they had one wife. So, of course, these many references we have. But of course, when we get into societies like say Lahori society, no one knows about such traditions. It's not only about Lahore, maybe in Kinnaur, maybe in other parts as well. Again, in Sirmaur too, I have heard about, you can say, such traditions. But now maybe they are there or not. But of course, when we are talking about say the studies of polyandrous society, and it's not only, again I'm saying, not only a case in India, but of course it is a part of the world over, and wherein you can say the very ideas and ideals behind such traditions may be different. So these make a case study for the researchers in different fields of study. So this mitzvah too, what happens in this mitzvah is that the big brother, he falls ill, and the second, in order to ward off, because he was about to die, but this is a tradition that they prepare one, what do you say? One kind of, you can say, cloth made gudiya sort of, all right, and then they try to either burn it and just to show maybe what kind of it is. But again, because the writer has taken a different note of it, because the second brother, who feels in a sense marginalized in this system of marriage, he feels as if, you can say, because that what do you say? Just a second. That mitzvah, basically, that's that mitzvah. So he feels like mitzvah, that it is being burned, it is being prepared, it is just for the sake of the big brother. So he feels himself like this. So the story has a different take altogether. It's just that that this is not a good tradition from the point of view of the other brothers. So this is the writer's take, but of course these very traditions are there. So ultimate take is about translating such traditions. It's not, because again we see that many of the Himachali literatures, many folk stories, folk songs, you must, if at all you can get into the folk songs, we don't know the meaning. Of course, during our marriage parties and all, we keep dancing on those numbers, but we don't know the exact stories. Even you can say for many stories, if we get into those very stories, we come to know that they are quite horrific. They are Mera Bijdu Darat. Okay, you must have heard this song, and you see that what happens is that there is one lady who was killed, and there were many rapes. Even they have been sung, okay, within the folk songs. So we see that we have to get into all these cultural specific traditions, and we need to propagate them. Propagate in the sense that we have to come out, because ultimate messages, for example, Dr. was talking about the stress disorders, but of course you can say again, we should be knowing first. It's that we know about this stress, but of course getting into the very essence of these stories is a difficult take. So ultimately, I just want, you can say, to conclude my presentation by saying that, we have to venture into translation because it's something which is very, very important, and it has the capacity to echo the cultural traditionality of any culture, you can say any culture, but I was focusing on Himachali culture. So, as part of, you can say, Himachal, we have to venture into more and more translation studies. So this is what I have to say. Thank you. Thank you.